In this lecture, you will write your first test in Postman, so let's get started with it. Now, what is a test, you're probably asking yourself, and a test most commonly is just a simple assertion. And in an assertion, you just check a value from the response against an expected value. So for example, in the response, you will have the status code. And the status code, usually when the response is successful, is like something like 200. And then you will check the status code from the response against an expected value, and that is 200. And this is an assertion, and an assertion can be part of the test. And when an assertion fails, then the test itself fails. And of course, one request, that is when you're sending something to a server, can have multiple tests, and each test can have multiple assertions, but we'll get to that a bit later. What's important to know in Postman that the tests only run after the request completed, which means only after Postman got a response from the server are the tests being executed. So this is how a test looks in Postman, and this is a simple test, and even if you don't understand everything by looking at this, don't worry about it. I will explain it in just a bit. But first, let's go to Postman and write this test, execute it, and see how it goes. So for that, I will be using a get request against example.com, and I'll go to the test tab. And now in this editor, I have the possibility of writing test. And because what I previously showed you might be a bit scary and you might write actually some typos in that code, we are just going to use a snippet that's being provided by Postman, and it will make it much easier for us to get started. So right here on the right side, you will see a list of snippets, and just in case this is hidden, you can open and close it by clicking this arrow. Now from the list of snippets, I'll be looking for a snippet that says status is 200. And you will see here that status is 200 is being displayed here. Once I click that, this piece of code will be generated. And this is our test, and this is our assertion that's testing that the status code is 200. So let's quickly run it. Hit in the send button. And when I'm inspecting the responses, I'll be able to see here that apart from the response body, cookies, headers, everything that was previously there, you will also see this test results tab. And inside here, you will see the test that you have actually written and that the status code is 200. Let's make sure that this test actually fails, because what happens a lot is that developers and testers write tests that never fail. We always want to make sure that our tests fail. And so for that reason, I will slightly change the address and type in example.com and /u. And that is something that doesn't exist. And for that reason, the server will return another status code that is not 200. And to be more specific, the status code that will be returned is 404, not found. And you will see here that below you will get an assertion error and saying that, well, the status code 200, which is what you have expected, this is the expected value, doesn't match 404, which actually came back from the response. So congratulations, you just written a test that works and it checks that the status is 200. Now, let's go back to the slides and try to understand a bit what exactly is happening there. Now, I've changed a bit the color to make it a bit easier for you to understand. You will see here that the test will start with PM test. And in Postman, this is the function for writing test specifications. And actually, this is all you need to know about it, because all the tests that you will be writing will start with pm.test. And this is the function that you always call in order to write a test. What's important about this way of writing tests in Postman is that this function works in a non-blocking way. So in case anything that you put inside your assertions, or you write any code inside there, and this causes an error, it will not affect the other tests that you have inside. So in case the JavaScript error occurs, it will be isolated inside the PM test function, and it will not affect other pieces of code. And that is quite important. What you can do inside the PM test is to add multiple related assertions. And it generally makes sense to have a test which tests something, and to actually make sure that that test has sense from a business point of view, you can add multiple related assertions to that. But don't worry for it at the beginning, it might be a bit too much. We'll get to that a bit later in the course. Now let's try a bit to understand what exactly is going on. And I said that PM test is a function. And you will see here that the first argument to that function is actually a string, and that is the name of the test. And because it is a string, you can actually use variables or anything else inside there. You can change it the way you like it, you can name it the way you like it, doesn't matter. It is a string, and this is the way on how it will be shown in the test tab, in the test results. Now the second parameter is a callback function. And that callback function will be called when the so-called underlying execution, and that is the assertions that you write, have finished. And I know it sounds kind of a technical, and callback functions are used a lot in JavaScript, and you will actually find a resource to this lecture better explaining callback functions and how they work. For the moment, all you have to know is that the first argument is a string, the second argument is a callback function, and inside that callback function, inside the curly brackets, you can start writing assertions. And you will see that the first assertion that we have here is actually something that you can easily read, because it's something like pm.response to have status 200. This is something that no matter if you see this for the first time, this is something you understand, and this is a good thing, trust me. Now pm.response is something that Postman provides us, and we can get from PM response different kind of informations, like status code or headers or body. And later in this section, we'll have other examples dealing with body or dealing with headers and other information. But for the moment, this is all you need in order to write the most simple test in Postman, and that is testing the status code. And if you haven't done it already, open Postman now and try this snippet. Play around with it, try to make the test pass, try to make the test fail, try maybe to write it yourself without using the code snippet generator.